Hey there, lovely listener. Welcome to the Confidence Connection podcast, your cozy corner for faith-powered confidence chats that are down to earth as your favorite pair of jeans. I'm Ashley Henriott, your go-to conversation partner for this fun, faith-filled journey. Now, we're not here for the holier-than-thou vibes, but to keep it real and relatable. Life's already a bit too serious, right? So why not sprinkle in some humor and some practical faith wisdom? I'm so excited that you chose to listen to the Confidence Connection podcast. Before we get into today's episode, don't forget to leave a rating, a review, subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and anywhere you listen so you never miss an episode and you get to hang out with your girl every Tuesday. I want to personally invite you to our inner circle, a gathering of bold women ready to bring Jesus into their businesses, their homes, and relationships. It's more than a community. It's a confidence revolution. Just swing by ashleyhenriott.com to grab your spot. I'm saving you a seat. Hey, you guys. Welcome to the Confidence Connection podcast, recently known as Confidence and Coffee. Andi, you probably saw it as Confidence and Coffee. But, we're just trying to get more serious over here. And coffee is still life, but so is Jesus. And that is really what connects us with confidence. Anyways, you guys, I'm really, really excited to have Andi here. Andi, which her name sounds really intimidating, but it's not. She told me it has like a French ending. So it's Martineau.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, I'm sure if we had a French person on here, they would correct us, but
they would totally,
that's the way I say it.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of LaCroix. Like there was a little bit of a debate when that first kind of got trendy. It was you would hear people say
yes,
lacroix.
Yeah, or try to do that French guttural sound that Americans have trouble doing. Yeah,
don't be extra. Don't be extra.
Serious.
Anyways, I love that you're not.
I'm not. Yeah.
Here's what makes Andi super cool, except the fact that she looks beautiful. You guys aren't going to believe. But homegirl has 6 kids. One who's about to be 24 years old.
Look so crazy. I think I'm 24, so it's hard for me to believe he's 24.
This is like recognize the fact, like you look 24.
Thank you. I'll take it.
I swear to you,
I'm not,
24.
but I wish I was.
I'm not even lying. I'm not one to lie. I'm a terrible liar. Like you look amazing. Like I just want to hang out with you for that what are you doing? Okay. Is it genetics? I need to know.
Yeah, I can't pinpoint it on anything, but if I figure it out, I'll let you know for sure.
Please let me know. You guys, a little bit more about Andi. I love her. She calls herself a reformed yeller. She's a best-selling author and the creator of Connect Method Parenting. And it's a breakthrough parenting framework that leverages connection, we love that word, as the primary mechanics or we're going to just use that fancy word.
Yeah, mechanism, tool, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
For influencing children. And her approach helps parents discover why their kids don't listen and shows them the step-to-step process of regaining influence and building relationships that will last a lifetime. And she is a testament of this. So with hands-on experience, raising her own children, all 6, 14 through about to be 24, intensive coursework in developmental psychology, another thing we love here, and years of experiencing in parenting coaching, Andi has been able to help thousands of parents learn the parenting methodology that gets their kids to want to listen. Her goal is to help parents stay calm. We need that. I need that.
Yes.
Confident and connected no matter what their kids are doing. I love this. And here's what I love. She's all about building the relationships through every phase and stage. And I know from being on social media that you hear a lot about gentle parenting and respectful parenting. And it's really, they talk more statistically with younger children, which it should start young. We should start regulating our emotions and change and younger, but nobody gives you tips about like I have a 13-year-old, I have 11-year-old, they don't prepare you for the triggers personally of coming from a dysfunctional childhood that come with that. right?
Right.
With all the hormones and all the testosterone and all the puberty, whatever, like, and so I'm really, really very much looking forward to hearing your point of view, your methodologies. And I want you to share more a little bit about who you are and what you do and why you're here today. What are you going to talk
Yeah.
about, Andi?
Yes. Well, we're going to talk about connect method parenting, which you've done a beautiful job introducing. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how it all started, because I didn't start out thinking as a young mom, oh, I'm going to go and figure out parenting. I actually thought I had all the tools I needed until I didn't, until they didn't work anymore. And there's this moment, I call it the great baby powder blizzard of 2006, where I had a big wake up call. So I felt like I was killing it that morning. I'd like folded the laundry and actually done the morning dishes before it was time for lunch, which is a huge deal when you have, lots of little ones. And I had 6 in 8 years. So they were just boom, 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 boom. And my last are only a year and 5 days apart. So there was a lot going on in my home. And about 30 minutes into this, I'm killing it as a mom. I folded the laundry. I got the dishes done. I realized it'd been 30 minutes and I didn't know where my kids were. I mean, I knew they hadn't left. I knew they were safe, but I wasn't sure what was going on. So the playroom was off the kitchen. It was an enclosed garage. So it didn't have a big opening, just a normal door opening. So I actually had to walk over there. I heard some rustlings. I'm like, they're alive. It's good. And I peek in and I see the empty Costco size bottle of baby powder, which I think nowadays, we don't do baby powder anymore. I think it's toxic or something. I don't know. But back then we did baby powder. And I had a lot of kids. I had a big one. And my 20-year-old daughter, who was in on the shenanigans, told me recently, there was flour involved too, Mom. I don't remember the flour because the baby powder was, the smell and the container. But I look in, and I'm from Arizona, so we don't have weather blizzards. But my brain thought blizzard because everything was covered. We had a huge bean bag. We had carpet, all the drawers, the DVD player, because that's what we watched movies to at the time, ruined, couldn't replace it because we didn't have the money to replace it, just gone. And I lost my mind. I just went into corrective parenting. That's what I call the opposite of connective parenting, is corrective parenting. So I'm going to fix this. Yeah, I'm going to fix this with a lecture. Why did you guys do this? You know better. I blamed them. You're making me so mad. It's a pretty typical one, right? We like to blame the kids for how we're feeling. Or you're not playing with you're not playing with your friends for the rest of the day, give them a good consequence. And I think he was 3 or 4 at the time. He's now 19, which is so crazy, but he's always just had this playful disposition and he's just a fun kid. Well, he had kind of been the instigator of this creation. And I could tell as I walked in, even though I was fuming, I could see his face and it was smiling. He was wanting to show me, look what we did, because he didn't have any idea that this was a bad thing. This was a cool thing he created. And as I launched into corrective and lecture and blaming, his face and body language, I could just tell he felt the impact of that. There's something wrong with me. I'm a bad person. And there was this divine intervention. That's all I can call it because it makes no other sense. There's no other explanation, but I had this pause and it felt as if there was a palpable shift. I went from, this is terrible, I'm angry, lecture, all the things, to, oh, the kids were they're not trying to make my life difficult. They're just trying to explore. It's probably because I left the baby powder down. I wasn't blaming, but I was just kind of going through and seeing it through this different light. I was able to accept the situation, took a deep breath. I didn't know till later. I had to, reverse engineer this to figure out what actually happened because it was just a little gift from God, like a little, hey, this is possible. My nervous system calmed down, could feel my shoulders relax. I knelt down. I looked at him in the eyes. We made eye connection, gave him a hug, actually pulled out. It's so funny because I didn't take a picture with my iPhone. I didn't have an iPhone. Probably had a flip phone or something. Had to take a real picture with a real camera back in the day. Actually had the wherewithal to do that. So we still have that picture as this, landmark indicator of when things started to shift for me. And what I thought was going to be a disaster, and if I had continued down that other way of framing it up, it would have been a disaster. We would have been disconnected. I would have been irritated, probably would have called a couple people to just rant about it. And instead, we connected. It took a lot of hours to clean it up, but we got it cleaned up faster than I thought. It was enjoyable. We had a beautiful day. And I felt this awareness of, I have been asked, this awareness that I was getting an answer to what I had been asking for. I had been asking for a different way, and I didn't know what that way was. It felt really scary to even consider letting go of what I would now call behavior modification or corrective techniques. Those consequences and rewards, they just seemed essential to parenting. So I thought, if I let them go, I'm going to be passive. So what I saw in this moment was, Andi, there is a way where you can still have limits. You can still be compassionate. You can marry them together, get the best of both worlds, and actually have impact and influence with your kids, get them to want to listen to you without that tug of war. And it was beautiful. It was everything. And it was the catalyst for me saying, okay, I have stepped away from nursing. That's what I got my degree in, because I was taking care of all these kids now. I have a focus. This is my occupation, right now. I'm going to deep dive on this and find the science to back it up, find people who are doing this. I mean, it took years, but it was my mission. And I thought, as I was reflecting on that multiple times, just, I want to find whatever happened, need to figure out what I did. And I didn't, it wasn't like, I did this, it was like, whatever I was able to do, this gift I was given, so that I can replicate it. Not because I want to be perfect and never lose my cool, because that's just not realistic, but I want to recover quickly if my nervous system does get triggered and I do slip into old patterns. And I want to practice over and over again, whatever I need to do to set myself up to be more calm and connected and confident as well. When I'm navigating these situations, because I knew, 6 kids in 8 years, I had my oldest was 7 or 8 at the time. I had a lot of years to go. I needed to figure this out. So that's what started this mission. That's what started this calling in my life, and what me being able to figure out a method, find the developmental psychology evidence and the studies to back it up. It's now something, I'm regularly still in practice of doing it and getting better and better, but also sharing it with other people, because I feel the goodness in it. I see the evidence of what can happen when we step into this more compassionate way of parenting. And I know your audience is mostly Christian, so I can see in the Bible too of how much evidence there is of this is how God parents us. He's not all coming down with fire and brimstone. He's trusting us, and we have free will and agency, and he lets us figure that out, and he believes in us even when we mess up. So that's where I am. That's how I got here, and just spreading the word of Connect Method Parenting to help free people from what they think is the only possible way to seeing this new way.
Yeah. I would actually I'm interested. I want to talk about the spiritual side if you're comfortable. No offense
Very
if you're not.
comfortable. Very comfortable. Yeah, let's go there.
We're real and practical around here. Like,
right. I know. I love your shirt.
Like, I tell her before we start recording, I'm like, they're going to say Illuminati, or I'm not a real Christian, or they'll come up with something. But you know what? Religion ain't welcome here. Okay. We are not religious. We love Jesus, and, we're real. And so I'm aware what I want, because I think it's cute. Anyways, I would love for you to explain some of that science that you discovered.
Yeah.
And connect that. Yeah. What did you find out in that? Was it like exciting and like, yes?
It was so exciting. It was so reassuring too. So I have one of my favorite developmental psychologists that I feel just preaches truth and marries it with science, which is a good combination, is Gordon Neufeld. He's a Canadian developmental psychologist. Love him. And he's more of a theorist. So he takes other people's work that they've put their life into and puts it together into theories. And he has presented so much powerful information and data around emotions.
Yeah.
And so I'll just start there. One of the things I discovered was that going from mad, frustrated, upset, whatever it is, to full circle to accepting, we call it mad to sad, but it's really, I'm resisting the situation, I'm fighting against it, and those emotions that come up, which might be resentment, irritation, anger, frustration, whatever it is. I walk into the bedroom, walk into the baby powder blizzard, right? I start with this resentment, and then I eventually get to, I might be sad about it, but I'm also accepting it. And that journey, that emotional journey, what the science has shown is when we are allowed to experience that gamut, that mad to sad, going the whole way, is our brain, when they do the scans, the brain is developing and growing and changing. In fact, they did this study with toddlers, because toddlers are so fun to, they just show everything. So they have taken their tears. So fascinating. I could geek out on this all day about science.
Right? That's what I was like, tell me.
Yeah, they've measured the composition of the tears when they're angry, when they're in that, give me a cookie, I can't believe you didn't give me a cookie before dinner, that kind of mode.
Yeah.
And compared them to the tears that are coming out when they've accepted, mom's not giving me a cookie, I'm just going to resign, I'm just going to settle, I'm just going to accept this. And what they have found is those tears that are coming out when they're accepting the reality, I mean, and as much as a toddler can, but their nervous system is, giving up the fight, is that in those tears, there's all of those chemicals, those fight or flight chemicals are being released in their, I shouldn't say all of them, but there are fight or flight chemicals being released into their tears to help their bodies go back to a parasympathetic homeostasis. But what we don't realize is if we interrupt the process, if we're like, no, calm down, baby, don't cry, why are you making this a big deal? And we shut them off and we don't let them make that full journey, or we don't let ourselves make that full journey, then we aren't getting back to that homeostasis. It can manifest in a lot of different ways in what it might do to us, depending on how often that's happening. But allowing ourselves to take that full cycle, we release the chemicals either through our tears, and a lot of us adults aren't crying our eyes out, but our body still has a way to do it.
Yeah.
And then our brain grows up, because then our nervous system is saying, oh, we can handle being disappointed and not die. And so we become more emotionally resilient. And as I was finding out all of this data, I mean, this is just one part of it, but the emotions is a big part, because it's important that we're honoring our kids' emotions and our own emotions. That's how I'm going to become more emotionally mature, is that the emotions are the engine to my maturation, or to my kids' maturation. So I actually want to let them feel the wave of emotion and allow them to come out the other side stronger, more resilient, and more mature. And that's how we grow up emotionally. It's not through some of the other things we might think is, hardening them, or just get into the, just get with it. Just accept that this is reality. We have to let them surrender to the reality that I don't always get my way, and that's okay. And I can survive, and it doesn't have to be the end of the world. So there were things like that I just found along the way that both blew my mind and also allowed me to accept the emotions I was having in my body, all of the emotions, because we label them as negative and positive, but really they're just all there to serve us. They don't need to be scary. They're just there to teach us. They might inform us of something. But when I'm not scared of them, or even I maybe even invite it, oh yeah, I'm really nervous, I'm doing this thing, or I'm really frustrated. Let me just sit with that and let my body take that wave and know I'm okay. Man, that's how I grow up. So heck yeah, I want to ride that wave, and I want to help my kids ride it too, so that we can, be more resilient and be more mature, because physical maturation, it's inevitable, right? We can't really stop our bodies from aging, but emotional maturation, it's spontaneous. It happens really naturally, but it's not inevitable because we can have roadblocks that happen, things that happen in our life that prevent us from taking that full emotional trip. And as a result, we're not where we want to be. So, in fact, cut me off if you want, because I just could keep rambling about this all day.
No, I'm
It's
interested.
so
This
good.
is so good.
Yeah. Well, they've done some studies on young men specifically that are in juvenile halls. They've gotten in trouble. They're getting, they're being watched in a situation, and the prefrontal cortex is underdeveloped in almost all of them. Because primarily, I'm sure there's many reasons, but one of the big reasons is because emotionally they're at a more immature place. And so because of the life they've lived and the circumstances they've had, they just haven't been able to emotionally mature. But what they found is they can mature that part of their prefrontal cortex. They can up level their emotional maturity by giving them opportunities in situations where they can start to develop that ability, which I think is really promising, because there's a lot of parents that come and they're like, "Is it too late? Have I screwed up?" And
I was going to ask you that. Like,
it's
what
never
do you,
too late.
yeah, I was going to ask you that. Like, I'm just thinking too, like, I, have a 13-year-old, and
Right.
he was basically my guinea pig, sadly.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I got pregnant at 18, 19 years old. And so I had no idea what I was doing. Also, I didn't even know what I was dealing with, my trauma.
Mhm.
And
Right.
so I do realize and accept, for us as a family, my younger children are a lot more confident and safe in their emotions around us, more
Mhm.
than my older children. More so my oldest. Like, my second is good because, my two older have different dads, or a different dad than my husband, but he raised them. Like, they were 4 and 2.5, 3. And so my second one doesn't remember as much as my first one. So there was all that, right?
Mhm.
But I do realize there's a lot of emotional immaturity that we're working through to
Right.
help him, because there's a block there. There's like an empathetic block, which is, it's just like a safety net of like, I can't be vulnerable, I can't cry. And so I genuinely think, but I know for other moms, and this, doing this for so long, they're like, oh my gosh, like, I am doing all the wrong things. Like, I love when you say that that's promising, even in juveniles. So, like, when you say they put them in situations, or like, let's say that they are 13 and 14,
Yeah. Or 18.
or
I mean,
yeah, or
well,
30.
or 30. Well, and the brain, the prefrontal cortex, I mean, we can continue. They've had lots of evidence that we continue to have the growth in our brain. They used to think, oh, once you hit this age, the brain stops growing. That's been disproved. But for a male, the brain's not even fully developed. There's different studies, but one of the studies that I keep seeing consistently is 30. For a female, 25. For a male, 30. So he still has, at 13, you think, oh my gosh, he still has a lot of time where his brain is still actually in a really good window of development. So what they're showing, with these juveniles, the juvenile delinquents, is they're even old. I mean, they're in that range, right? They're
Right.
teens usually, but they could be even on the upper end of
Right.
like 17, and it's not too late. And what they're doing to help them develop that is giving them permission to have emotions
Yeah.
and allowing them to be safe, to feel their anger, because a lot of them have legitimate reasons to be angry. But what we don't want to have them do is have that stuck in their bodies forever, because then that just becomes attacking, and it's destructive. Because if we don't take that journey completely, then we don't get the benefit of the maturity that comes as a fruit, as a result of that journey. If we're stuck in the middle and I just keep that anger inside of me without at some point, I mean, it's okay that it might take a little while, but at some point, allowing myself to accept myself, to feel the emotion, to be okay that I have the emotion, to even be okay that I have the anger, then I just, excuse me, I miss out, or whoever it is misses out on the brain development, because that natural growth that I was talking about when they do the scans, that just happens. We don't make that happen. There's nothing I can do that says, make my brain change, you know? There's nothing I do consciously, but it happens naturally when we're in those situations. So if you're listening and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have a 13-year-old or a 15-year-old, and they just really feel stuck in anger. Well, if it starts with us being okay that they're stuck in anger, not blaming ourselves, us getting more acquainted with our own emotions. Maybe we're stuck, in frustration or guilt. Or I used to be so hard on myself. I mean, I still have that tendency, but I was mean to myself. How I messed up. How could you do this? Such a perfectionist. That's not going to heal us. That's not going to help us
No,
model for them. That's not what we want for them. So
no.
we have to really be the example for them of, I'm okay with my emotions too. And then as a result, they can be okay with their emotions, and I can feel really uncomfortable, because a lot of times that's what it is I feel so uncomfortable when he's angry, or I feel so uncomfortable when he's not cooperative or
Right.
not being kind. And so I have to realize that's my job to be okay with these negative emotions in my body, not my child's job to stop acting or doing that so that I
Mm,
feel better.
come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I bet you help so many parents regulate their emotions and realize their traumas when you're helping them like raise their own children. Like you're literally
Yeah.
uniting whole families and breaking generational, cultural like curses of,
Right.
that kids don't matter, but literally the Lord tells us to have faith like a
Hmm.
child. And the spiritual side, if you're which I asked, like, if you're comfortable talking about that, like,
Yeah.
I want to go back to what you said, like, Jesus doesn't, treat us that way. And if we think about it for
No.
a second, like, I'm an imaginary person. That's why Jesus says, have faith like a child, because they're so imaginary. And
Hmm.
so when I think about God, because I'm a perfectionist, I was always hard on myself and I had to heal my inner child. And I was
Hmm.
her biggest abuser when I got older. I
Hmm.
was ashamed of her. I was like, go back in the closet. You're shut up. You say the wrong things, rather than standing up for her. And so,
Hmm.
like, I was going through all the things and therapy and EMDR, and, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Um, I realized that when I visualize God, and I would hope that other parents do this, can you imagine being in front of God and making a mistake or having an emotion, and the Lord being like, shut up, suck it up. This is life. Get over it. You should be stronger. That's not God's nature in any way, shape, or form. It's not even biblical. It's not even in the Bible. He had so much patience and so much guidance. And he
Hmm.
is just so whole and consistent and righteous. And he did everything from the beginning of time to be with us, ultimately,
Hmm.
just to be with us. He didn't have to do any of that. And so, like, I know for me, what healed me was seeing Jesus as like this very comforting, father who was so patient and kind and sat with me in those emotions and sat with me in that anger and created a safe space where I could ask really hard questions and I
Hmm.
could, express my emotion. And so, on the spiritual side of that, like, I just want you to know everything you're saying is literally biblical. Like, I
Hmm.
stand up for that on the biblical side of this.
Right.
Um, I got you, girl. Okay.
Good.
Like,
Awesome. I love it, Ashley. Thank
like
you.
we're like,
I mean, that's
because
important to me.
I'll be real
That
with you, religious people are the meanest parents and people in the world. They
Mm.
really are. And that's why people run away from the safest space they should be at. They run away from it because they feel even more like they don't belong. You're feeding into shame that they've already suffered with.
Right.
And then you talk about there's hope, right? And you talk about, and if you want to touch on this, like when you talk
Yeah.
about, there's hope and that we can, 20, 18, even I'm 34, like there's
Right.
hope for adults, right? The Lord tells us, renew your mind. Literally, it's a
Mhm.
science, it's a physical action. It's not like some make believe thing. Like when we are renewing our thoughts and we are thinking on things that are true and are safe and are loving, that is changing our neuro like system, and
The
even our
neural
fight and
pathways,
flight.
yeah, they're
Yeah, and our
changing.
like our fight or flight, we're basically submitting our flesh to be like, you're not in danger, because your brain is trying to tell you you're in danger, and you're regulating that by like, that's literally renewing your mind. I think that people don't understand that concept, and then they do it in their own strength. As a Christ-centered
Mhm.
confidence coach, I find that people don't really understand what that means, like
Mhm.
logically. And then they are like, I just was supposed to be good, and I wasn't good,
Yeah.
and I didn't renew my mind. That's not what it's about at all. And so, what you're
No.
saying, if you want to touch on that, is like, it's literally renewing your mind. There is hope. Like me
Yeah.
regulating and healing, I'm healing now with my 13-year-old, and I'm real with him
Mhm.
about my irregulations and my trauma. So it comes from a place of compassion and understanding of like, your mom is not just mean, even though I
Right.
can be mean, but we
Yeah.
apologize a lot in this house and we ask for forgiveness. But also, they know that mom is literally growing with them.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
and if there's something that Jesus definitely taught us was not to be judgmental. I mean, you just see that everywhere. He's
Oh, yeah.
example after example of him, you know, standing up for the things that everyone, one of the examples, the prostitute, right? And they're all standing around in the circle ready to throw rocks, and he's saying, you know, he who hasn't sinned, like, you throw the first stone. Everyone walks away, and then he just goes to her and he's like, sin no more. He wasn't giving her a lecture and saying, okay, so you know that what you've been doing is bad. Like, he believed in her goodness. He probably understood her story and what had led her to that place, which I think as parents is so powerful. Even though we might not know all the reasons why our kids are acting the way they are, if we can believe there's a reason that they're feeling triggered or they're being abrasive or whatever it is, and I can give them the benefit of the doubt and just meet them where they are and help them move forward. I mean, that's what this is about. And it's shown all over the place in the Bible. And one of my favorite stories is the prodigal son. I often think about that father who had this, he has
Yeah.
two sons, this perfect son who follows all the rules, does all the right things. And the son who basically, flips him off, for lack of a better word. I mean, I've done a little bit of research that says when he takes that inheritance and he walks out, he's basically saying, you're basically dead to me. I don't respect you. I'm going against everything you've taught me, which is a could be interpreted very, it could just be very hurtful for the dad or very
Yeah.
insulting. And then for him to look and accept him, I think there's a scripture that says he's looking, which I don't, to me at least, makes me think about him being on the lookout, anticipating the return of his son, thinking about, how am I going to greet him back? What am I going to say to him when he comes back? How do I want to, position this, and who do I want to be for him? And I think that's the example of, we're going to have kids that mess up. We're going to mess up. How can we be kind and gentle to ourselves and trust that our kids actually kind of know what's right and wrong, what's good and bad. They get an indication of what our moral compass is and what our principles and priorities and values are. So we probably, more often than not, don't need to remind them of that. We just need to welcome them back in with love and acceptance, knowing they know what's right and wrong. They just need their nervous system calmed down. They need to realize we're on their team even though they messed up. And when we do that, these problems we think we need to fix, they just kind of fix themselves.
Amen.
Resolves. Yeah,
Yeah. Amen. Amen.
powerful
Amen.
stuff.
Amen. And if I could add on to that,
Yes, please.
Jesus, I love when you're like, we don't need to remind them. We really don't. Like,
Yeah.
we're nagging. And the
Mhm.
reality is, like, when I say we're, like, them, okay.
Yeah.
But just like Jesus created safety for us to admit our
Mhm.
shame and our weaknesses and our sin. He created
Right.
safety because your fight and flight brain, like, if you're already being told your whole life to shut up, sit down, you're bad, you don't do enough, you're not good enough, and your brain is that's all it knows, and then it kind of connects that with danger and, unsafety,
Yeah.
then like, when you say something like that, like, to your child, then they're immediately like, I'm in danger, I'm shutting off, I'm internalizing, and I'm not sharing with you because you're going to hurt me.
Yeah.
But what Jesus did was like, no, you're safe with me to be open so we can walk through these things together.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
just wish that culturally everyone got that. But what I have learned in diving in that, like, why? Like on a
Yeah.
religious community aspect, like the religious community aspect, I'm like, how, like, go back for a second on two things I asked them to do. One is, how did you come to Jesus? Like, for real, was it like
Mhm.
telling somebody, like, did somebody tell you you were an abomination and you were going to go to hell? I'm just curious. Was that it for you? Or was it like gentle and kindness and safety and grace? I'm just curious. And second,
Mhm.
like, how are you glorifying God by coming down on people? How does this glorify God in any way? Like, just bringing it back to basics. And then when people try to come at me, I'm like, am I going to hell? Like, if I go trick or
Mhm.
treating, am I going to hell? And they're like, no. Well, okay. 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 This is
Yeah.
ridiculous. And what I have found in all of those things and discovering is that they're just very insecure. Like, they have not healed and they are too afraid to step out into that safety because that's all they've known. And I believe that's why we spank. I believe that there's that whole like toxic yelling, that whole like, be quiet when you talked about, your whining makes me uncomfortable. It's
Right.
because it's triggering your things that you haven't dealt with because you never had safety. It's so
Mhm.
important for parents to find their safety, to be able to come out with these things and heal so they can heal with their family.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, parenting really starts with our internally inside of ourselves. And I love that you're bringing the safety up to the forefront because you're absolutely right. I sat for, I think it was right after COVID happened. I was finding myself feeling really anxious, and I would just sit every morning. I am safe. I am safe. I would just close my eyes. I am safe. And it was a little prayer, little contemplative prayer here. And it was powerful to take the time to, one, have the awareness that something was off with me and I wanted to recalibrate, I wanted to reconnect, and that I have to feel the safety. And in there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. It's written by a psychologist that was helping, I think, World War II vets. It was before PTSD was a thing. That wasn't there was no diagnosis. They were trying to figure out why some World War II vets could come home having experienced the exact same battle and not have what we would now call PTSD, and others couldn't integrate back into life. They were just, unable to. And one of the things that came out of that was validation and safety. So feeling safe in their body. And there's a phrase, I think he's the one that I heard it from, that just says safety is the solution. Because you're absolutely right.
Mm,
If the nervous system is triggered, we cannot heal because we're seeing the mess or the attitudes, and we are just fists up, ready to fight or fleeing if that's our go-to nervous system response. And so safety is the solution. We have to safety in our body before we can show up and be the parent we want to be. So
yeah.
I love that.
I love that you made a choice. I'm sure it wasn't easy. Like this, like that was a whole
No.
journey of regulating.
Yeah.
Um, it is for me, in
Right.
doing this with
For
my
all of
kids.
us. Hmm.
Yeah. Um, again, asking for lots of forgiveness. I love how forgiving children are. Isn't that interesting? Just how they immediately are just forgiving and loving and are just like, yeah, it's okay.
Right. That's what we want to have.
Right.
If we can be that way,
Yeah.
that's
That's how we
that's what
should be
Jesus
with
showed us.
them. Right.
Right. That's how we
Like,
should be with them.
when you talk about the father, he threw a big party when his son came back. He didn't
Yeah.
bring up any of the wrongs. He
Mm-mm.
didn't like talk about the money that he spent. He was just happy that his child was back. And that in itself was that unconditional love was transformation. It was just transformation because he came back even as like, I failed. I should be with the
Right.
kids. Okay.
Yeah, he didn't even want to come into the house. Yeah,
No.
exactly.
And he's like, absolutely not. And
Yeah.
I believe and I pray that, like, I'm so glad that you're talking about these things. I'm interested what you talk about in your book and the steps that you ask parents to take. I would love to hear more about that,
Yeah.
because this is so important, and I'm so excited that it's being spoken about more
Yeah.
than
Hopefully mainstream soon,
ever.
right?
Yeah.
That's my goal. Get this mainstream. There's all the science and data to support it.
I
So
love
in the
the
book, I
science. Keep talking about the science.
yeah, the science, isn't it
The
so
tears,
good?
man,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like how true is that? And the whole time I'm like, yes, Jesus, you are so good, man. Like how you
Yeah, I
created us
know.
to cry and weep, because it regulates, and it helps with all of this emotion, like
Mhm.
come out. And here, like I remember immediately when you said that, like parents are like, Shut up, sit down, don't cry." Like I
Yeah.
was beat and abused. I was molested. We lived on the streets. Like I had a terrible childhood. And I remember my stepdad anywhere. If I smiled funny, if I spoke funny, if I looked, plus I was the target child, he would beat
Yeah.
me. Like he would go and take me in a room that nobody was in, and he would beat me, and anywhere. And he would make me come out and smile.
Mm.
And that
Yeah.
did something to my psyche, my emotions.
Yeah, how could it not?
Right. And
You weren't
so,
safe.
right. And so now, girl, I cry all the time.
Yeah. It's good.
Right.
Get it out.
But before, I was just, that came out as I grew in
Mhm.
anger.
Yeah.
That's why juveniles, that's why you're talking about juveniles, why people
Yeah.
get in trouble, why they self sabotage, because whether you wanted to, it's coming out in some type of different way.
Yeah, it's either gonna come out in attacking energy or it's gonna come out in healing energy. It has to
Yeah.
come out. I I like to think of emotions as like they have to move just like we eat food and then we either use it, and if we can't use it we've got to get rid of the rest of it, so we go poop it out or
Mm,
it's the same thing. We can be emotionally constipated where they're stuck in us, and that causes disease and pain and anger, and we're trying to get it out in all of the ways that are ineffective, that don't give us the benefit of the growth. We're
anxiety,
actually
depression.
right, all of that.
Yeah.
And it's the gentleness, the forgiveness, the acceptance that moves us forward. And I think a lot of us are afraid of that because we think, well, if I'm just all happy and accepting, I'm not going to make progress. And that couldn't be any further from the truth. I mean,
Right.
if you're accepting, if you're generous, if you are
People pleaser.
yeah. Yeah, if you're yeah, people pleasing is not gonna be helpful. But just like the example in the prodigal son, he was accepting, he was generous, he was compassionate to his son. We need to do that to ourselves. We need to be that for
We
ourselves.
have to stand up
And
for
I
ourselves.
we have to stand up for ourselves. And if we think, "Oh no, I can just be really kind with my kids, but I'll beat the crap out of myself." It doesn't work
It
like
doesn't
that.
work that way. No.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
work. And so we have to offer that to ourselves so that we can offer it to our kids so that they can be
Yeah.
safe. We can't yeah, we can't offer safety to them if we're not safe with our own emotions and our own body. And yeah, I love that the science just backs that right up. It shows us evidence of it time
So
and time again.
beautiful. It's so
Yeah.
beautiful. I know we only have a little bit of time, so I really want to talk about your book.
Oh yeah,
Um,
let's go back to the book.
yeah, tell me more about that, because I'm like, tell me all the steps. Like, I want to know
Yeah.
all of the things.
Oh, I can we how much time? No. No,
I
we need to schedule another
know.
hour. But I first talk about in the book how we got to where we are, because it's really hard to step away from a pattern if we don't even see the pattern. Awareness is first step. Sure, you talk about that all the time with the people you work with. So if we don't see, oh, this is how we got to this belief system that discipline and punishments and rewards, consequences, all the things are the thing with parenting, then it's harder to step away. So I introduce that. I talk about the impact of consequences and rewards with our intrinsic motivation. They've done studies with toddlers, lots of studies, but I'll just cite one where they had these two groups of toddlers, and they were asked to do a task. And then one group was given a reward, which really is if you do this task, you get this thing, which is different. I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't celebrate and we shouldn't be, you know, paid for our work. But what was really interesting is one set of toddlers was said, okay, if you do this task, you get this reward. And the other toddlers were just asked to do the thing. And the toddlers who got the reward when they were asked to do a second task were 30% less likely to do the task, which is, when I first read that, my brain was like, what is happening? Because the rewards are supposed to work. They make sense. They're the good way. And the toddlers that weren't given a reward, did the second task more of them did the second task. And so I go through the book of the impact that even what we might see as positive things, which is a reward is just on the other side of the coin of a consequence or a punishment. It deflates, it inhibits our natural intrinsic motivation, which we have been given. God gave that to us so that we would progress and grow and improve. And we don't want to do anything that gets in the way of that. We want to help that grow, because ultimately that's what's going to allow our kids and allow us to want to keep, maybe reading or progressing in whatever area, physical, spiritual, emotional, mental. So we want that intrinsic motivation turned on. So I talk about that. Then we go through, what does it actually look like to step into a connective parenting framework? Because we don't have a lot of examples. I will say Bluey, if you haven't seen Bluey, they're doing a good job of showing glimpses of this, which is so encouraging. And I love that. But for the most part, that's not what we're seeing with examples in social media or in, TV or movies. We're seeing parents who are from the kid's fault and all the normal stuff. So I talk about, what does that look like? And how is this actually a legitimate way to parent? It actually is more powerful to parent from connection. You have more likelihood that they're going to listen to you. So I talk about that. And then I dive into the power of understanding. There's 3 strategies I go through. So understanding our own behavior so we can leave room for theirs, which is a lot of what we've talked about.
Don't tell us about the whole book, because we want them to go buy it. Andi.
Yeah. And then you got to go dive into it, because then I dive into more of these, and there's just really 3. We've talked mostly about the understanding your own behavior and who you are and what's going on for you, so you can leave room for theirs and neutralize their behavior. But there's 2 more strategies I talk about, and I give you some tools, and there's questions to work on throughout it that I ask you that will help you shift your mindset. So my goal with the book was really to create something that someone could get in their comfort of their home and introduce them into this world and give them tools that they could start, really using it right away. So that's my goal with the book. And that's what it's all about.
And tell people what it's called, and they can get it on Amazon right now.
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. And I sent you a link so that you can include it in the show notes. I will take them right to the page, so they don't have to go looking around for it. But it's just called Connect Method Parenting, just the name of the framework. And you can find it on Amazon. I did an Audible recording of it. It's my voice reading it. So for better or worse, you get me the whole time.
Get it, girl. That's amazing.
Yeah. I went to California and recorded it in a little studio, which was so fun. Felt all official with the headphones. And then I do have a free course that if someone's more inclined to learn by watching and just want to hear, I have that on I sent a link to you too, so you can include it in the show notes, but where they can just go take the free course and get them started in the introduction of what is Connect Method Parenting and how does it work, and get them a taste of so.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to already have a list of all the things that I'm going to put in the show notes, and I highly recommend that my mommies do this. And so my parents do this, because I have daddies listen too, like now, which is
dads
like
are
super
part
cool.
of it too.
Yeah. Dads aren't there. Like men are in our age, like didn't get to show emotion. So even more so, like, please, like we have to do this together to raise them right, raise them true, raise them safe, and raise them confident, because everything that you're talking about, you're going to be my starting August episode.
Love it.
And I didn't even plan it, but the way you're connecting, the way you're talking about the connection with all of these things, girl, with like the science part and the psychology. Hold on, girl. I know you're loving today's episode. Before we jump back in, let's get real about something many of us face. Do those nagging self-doubts, imposter syndrome, the fear of rejection ever hold you back from being bold in your business, in your relationships, in the world, especially when you're aiming to align with your mission for Jesus? Well, here's the scoop. My Confidence Connection 2-day virtual workshop is your compass to navigate those challenges. We're rolling up our sleeves to tackle imposter syndrome head on, kick the fear of rejection to the curb, empower you boldly to align your business with your mission for Christ. And we're not stopping there. In this workshop, I'll equip you with practical strategies. Silence those confidence killers. You'll walk away with actionable steps to conquer self-doubt, slay imposter syndrome, confidently shine your light for Jesus in your business and ultimately in your life. And the exciting part, you could snag a bundle of confidence-boosting goodies, like my confidence code quiz, my ebook, 5 Days to a More Confident You, a coffee on me, or a few, and a sweet discount code for our inner circle, and even more surprises. Don't wait another second. Visit ashleyhenriott.com/workshop right now to secure your spot. Let's conquer those confidence killers and the challenges lying your business with your mission and boldly shine your light for Jesus with practical strategies in hand. I'll even link it in the show notes for you. So don't forget to check that out after this episode.
Psychological part, and like, it's beautiful. I love how you just explained it. I haven't heard it that way. And you said it so patiently. So like when you say audiobook, I'm like, yes. Like I will only listen to audiobooks when it's recorded by the author, because it's just
I love it too.
more connecting for me.
Yeah, it feels more authentic.
And so I am really excited to start the Confidence Connection with this, because everything that you're saying, everything that you're showing us, everything that you're teaching us, and how to teach our children generationally, Andi.
Yes.
Is building their confidence.
Right. And everything we've talked about, the result of it is confidence. So it goes perfectly with what you're teaching.
I know. I was like, yeah, Andi has to come.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, because if we're connected, if we're emotionally regulating, if we're feeling proud of who we are, we can respect who we are showing up as with our kids. Yeah, we're going to be more confident in our life. We're going to feel more capable. So,
Amen. Well, Andi, if you could share one thing that you haven't been able to share, that you really want our community to take away from, what would that be?
I don't know if this isn't, I think we've touched on this, but
anything you want.
I think this, like, to bring it back and to emphasize this, put an exclamation point, bold, capital, all caps. It would be gentle with yourself as you go through this process. That there is a lot of criticism that typically happens with parenting. We have a lot of ourselves writing on our kids' success, and it's really easy. I think easier than any other relationship we have to take it personally and to blame ourselves and to shame ourselves when things aren't going the way we thought they were going to go as a parent with our kids' behavior or how we're showing up, either direction. So one of the superpowers I learned early on, thank goodness, was the power of being kind and gentle to myself, and realizing that was the medicine, so to speak, that was going to allow me to step into more of who I wanted to be with my kids. We don't get that. We don't get that benefit. We don't get to show up confident. We don't get to that place of compassion and connection when we're unkind to ourselves. It just doesn't happen. It happens through the acceptance. And just like those toddler tears, right? Like when they get to the acceptance and the toxins gets out of our body, we get to show up and learn and grow. And that's when our thinking's on. That's when we can be connected to inspiration beyond what we would be capable of ourselves and change our life. So accept that you're doing your best you can. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt, just like Jesus was doing in all those examples in the Bible. Like he was doing that. Can you do that for yourself? And yeah, if you start that path of being kind and gentle to yourself, all this other stuff we've talked about, it's going to start to open up for you and unfold for you, and shifts will happen. So that's what I want to put my exclamation point on.
I love it.
Bring
Stand
it home.
up
Bring
for
it back
yourself. Stand up for your
Right.
inner child so you can raise your children well,
Yeah.
people. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. You've been doing your best.
Yeah.
Based on what you've been.
What you know.
Don't beat yourself up.
Yeah. Well,
Exactly.
Andi, I'm so glad that you came on here, and I really do hope that like as soon as we get off that you will come back. I would love for you to come back.
Anytime.
I feel like we could
Have me come back anytime. We could jam for hours.
we really, really could. I adore you. I value you. I will drop all the things. Before I say goodbye, one more random question. It's just for fun. It's like 21 questions in Vogue.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And so I'll ask you like 3. So you have to answer them really fast. Okay. Have
I'll
fun.
see if I can do that.
Don't overthink it, ma'am. All right.
Okay.
So my first question is, if you could vacation anywhere, where would it be?
Hawaii. Love Hawaii.
Oh, my son said Hawaii last night. He asked me that question.
Specifically Kauai. That's my favorite island.
Kauai?
Kauai. The island of Kauai. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a small, beautiful, I think it's called the Garden Island. It's part of the Hawaiian Islands, but that's my favorite island.
Well, I want to go now. Okay.
Yeah, you have to go.
Second question. If you could say either, but pie, cupcakes, or cake for dessert?
Pie. There's no question.
Okay.
We were a big pie. We had 1 pie per person at Thanksgiving in my family. We overdid it. Love pie.
Would you rock climb or jump out of an airplane?
Oh, my daughter's been trying to get me to jump out of an airplane with her. So
Really?
I'd probably do that, but it scares the bejesus out of me. How do you say it? It scares me to death. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. I think the older I get, the more cautious I get.
Same.
With what my body
what is
can
that?
do.
Like we used to be so dumb and go on all these roller coasters, and I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah, I can just sit and watch you go on it.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I would do if I had to choose. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Andi, again, thank you so much. I hope to have you back. And I just believe that this is not only helpful to me, I receive it. I receive everything that comes on to this podcast. But I know my listeners will really benefit. And so thank you so much for sharing all that with us.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
As we wrap up another heart-to-heart episode of the Confidence Connection podcast, remember, your connection with Christ isn't a lofty goal. It's your daily lifeline. If today's chat has you nodding in agreement, hallelujahs and amens along with it, or maybe even chuckling, show us some love. Subscribe and leave a review. It's like a virtual high five. It helps us keep these conversations as down to earth and as relatable as your morning coffee. And speaking of practical strategies, conquering confidence killers, consider joining us at our Confidence Connection workshop. We'll equip you with actionable steps to silence those confident-crushing doubts, slay imposter syndrome, and confidently shine your light in your business. You're a part of our incredible community now, and I'm here to uplift you and connect with you. Till our next aha moment together, stay real, stay faith-fueled, and always remember, your confidence in Christ is the practical guide to a joyful and purpose-filled life.